always abound in great men. And from the time of independence till date, there have been so many great men, so many brave men, I should say rather, so many brave men who have sacrificed their lives for the sake of the motherland. They are crazily in love with India. They are crazily in love with the soil. That's why we rightly call them the sons of the soil. Okay, so in our story today, on Wings of Courage, we have one such hero, Air Force Marshal Arjun Singh. So let us go ahead with our lesson on Wings of Courage. On Wings of Courage is a description of Marshal Arjun Singh, Air Force Marshal Arjun Singh. So, Air Force Marshal Arjun Singh was the icon, Air Force Marshal Arjun Singh, an icon of India's military history, will always be remembered as a war hero who had successfully led the young IAF during the 1965 Indo-Pak War. We are all aware of the 1965 Indo-Pak War. We are all aware of the 1965 Indo-Pak War, right? 1965 Indo-Pak War, wherein India's military definitely has played an important role. But then that is the time wherein India's Air Force was not much developed as it is today. Okay, so it was just you can say it was a fledgling. It was developing. Okay, that's why it is said that he had successfully, Air Chief Marshal Arjun Singh had successfully led the young IAF. The young IAF means Indian Air Force was just growing during that time, and he was the one, Marshal Arjun Singh was the one who led it successfully. So the only officer to attain the highest post of a marshal, the Air Force equivalent to the Army's Star Field Marshal, Singh was a fearless and exceptional pilot. All right. So now when I'm talking to you about Marshal Arjun Singh, we also need to take down the character traits of Marshal Arjun Singh. All right. So I suggest even you do the same thing. So and you keep on making notes so that it becomes easier for you to understand things and to also learn, prepare for your lesson. Okay, basically this lesson is not much to explain or to discuss. It is more about taking notes, because it is all about it, because it is the information that is conveyed about Air Force Marshal Arjun Singh. Alright, so there is nothing much to explain, but yes, very much we need to note down the important points, the keywords, his qualities, his character traits. Right, so come on, take down. So the first point that we have about Air Force Marshal Arjun Singh is that he was the first one, he was the only officer to attain the rank of a marshal. Okay, only officer to attain this rank. All right, the next is he was a fearless person. He was a fearless pilot. He was fearless, absolutely. Okay, being in an army, navy, or an air force, being in the defense field, obviously the person cannot afford to be fearful, or a person cannot afford to be nervous at all. Okay, so our Air Force Marshal Arjun Singh, he was absolutely fearless. So Air Force equivalent to Army's 5-star Field Marshal, Marshal Arjun Singh was a fearless and exceptional pilot who had flown more than 60 different types of aircrafts. Fearless and exceptional pilot. Exceptional pilot. Okay. Next is he had flown more than 60 different aircrafts. Okay. Now, when I say that he has flown more than 60 different aircrafts, definitely what does it tell? Now, what does it tell you about Arjun Singh as a pilot? He was well experienced. Yes, absolutely, he was well experienced. At the same time, he was the one who had a hand. Firm hand over different varieties of aircrafts. All right, all aircrafts are not the same. Just like all the cars are not the same. Each one of them have some different functions, some different engine functions, some different fuel ingestion, etc., etc. Okay, so similarly, these aircrafts also, they have their various functions. They have varied weights. Okay, they have their various different varied pickup, etc., etc. Okay, so Air Chief Marshal Arjun Singh is accredited with flying 60 different kinds of aircraft, and therefore we can also say that his knowledge regarding air power was tremendous. So can we just write that as well? Okay, his knowledge of air power was tremendous. Okay, fine. Next, the only officer to attain the highest rank of the Marshal, the Air Force equivalent to Army officers, to Army's 5-star Field Marshal, Singh was a fearless and exceptional pilot who had flown more than 60 different types of aircraft. He played a major role in transforming the IAF into one of the most potent is the most powerful, okay, most potent air forces globally. Now, as we know that when Arjun Singh was appointed as a marshal, okay, the IAF, that is the Indian Air Force, was only a fledgling. Okay, it was just growing, and today it is because of his efforts, okay, that Indian Air Force is known globally. Okay, it has become so powerful and a defense entity. So his contribution to the Indian Air Force is monumental to the least. The IAF grew with him. He was the epitome, the symbol of military leadership in classical sense, and it is therefore not surprising that he was honored with the rank of Air Force Marshal. Former Chief of IAF Kapil Kak said. These are the words of Kapil Kak, okay, that it is not easy to do all these things what Arjun Singh did. And the title of Marshal that he has received, it is not just for nothing that he has received this title. It is a way he has led the army. It is a way that he has made the goodwill. It is a way he has put in his effort in the defense system of India, and especially in the Air Force. Singh was awarded the post of a marshal on the Republic Day in 2002. Sam Hormuzji Ramji, Jamshedji Manekshaw, and K.M. Karyappa were the only two army generals honored with the rank of a field marshal. And after that, we have Arjun Singh ranked with the same thing. Okay, known as a man of few words. So again, we have over here a man of few words. Known as a man of few words, he would talk less and work more. That is, action speaks louder than words, right? So, known as a man of few words, Singh was not only a fearless pilot, but also had profound knowledge about air power and applied it in a wide spectrum of areas. So, we have already written that point. He had a wide knowledge of air flying. He had a wide knowledge of air power, and there, not just having knowledge is not just sufficient. He also applied his knowledge in various fields. Okay, so air power, he had a wide knowledge in air power and he applied it in a wide spectrum of areas. Singh had assiduously working, continuously working hard. Okay, assiduously led the IAF during the 1965 war and denied success to Pakistani Air Force though it was better equipped with American support. Okay, one thing to be noticeable over here about Arjun Singh is that, as we have already been told, that Indian Air Force was at that time just a fledgling. It had not yet been developed, and Pakistani troops at that point of time, they had all the support from the American government. Okay, so they had a well organized Air Force. Now, as in comparison to that well organized American Air Force, Indian Air Force was quite inexperienced, yet Because of the effort, it was the because of the fearlessness and the effort of Marshal Arjun Singh that India was able to succeed against Pakistani Air Force. Pakistani Air Force, though it was better equipped with American support, his most astounding contribution was during that war, said Kapil Kak. Okay, he said his most astounding contribution was during that particular war, was during the Indo-Pak war when we needed them the much. Commending his role in the war, Y.B. Chavan, the then defense minister, had written, Air Marshal Arjun Singh is a jewel of a person. Quite efficient and firm, unexcitable, but a very able leader. Means, see, what is the difference between us and people like these? The only thing is, when something good happens to us, we really be excited. Oh, wow, something like this has happened. When something bad happens to us, we immediately frown, or we become sad. Okay, we become grumpy. Okay, all of these things. But then, for a person like Arjun Singh, anything, no matter what changes are taking place in the environment, he is unaffected by it. So it is said, therefore, rightly, that though he seems to be unexcited about anything, though he seems to be like unexcitable about any other thing, his contribution and his work speaks how dedicated he is, right? How determined he is. In 1944, the Marshal had led a squadron against the Japanese during the Arakan campaign, flying close air support missions during the crucial Imphal campaign, and later assisted the advance of the Allied forces to Yamgao, that is formerly known as Yangon, that is formerly known as Rangoon. So again over here, his contribution was quite crucial, was quite significant during the Arakan campaign as well. Okay. The United States offers the Medal for Distinguished Service in Military to the Army personnel. That is called the DFC, which is called the Distinguished Flying Cross. Distinguished Flying Cross. Okay, and we must be proud to acknowledge the fact that Marshal Arjun Singh was the first one to receive such a prestigious award on the spot by the Supreme Allied Commander of Southeast Asia. Now, at the age of 19, Arjun Singh was training people at the Royal Air Force. So obviously, it is a matter of pride for us. Now, further in the lesson, the details that have been given, it is more or less about Arjun Singh's birth, his birthplace, his education, and the number of achievements that he has had. Right. So this, instead of me telling you, okay, I have tried to arrange the data in a tabular form so that it would enable you to understand better and learn better, right? So it will give you the further details will give you all the data, his achievements in a particular, his achievements and the year of achievements and how did he achieve certain things, that will be given to you in form of a table. Okay, and this is how Arjun Singh proves to be an inspiration. Arjun Singh proves to be an inspiration to the army personnel throughout India.